When you think about a strudel, what's the very first thing that comes into your mind? Is it a flaky pastry that's filled with some fruit and topped with a cream cheese frosting? Well, what if I told you that today's strudel recipe is more closely aligned to the traditional pastry that you'll find in Austria? Oh, and did I mention that it's made entirely from scratch? Yep! Stick around and I'll show ya! Hi! My name is Tiffany and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making an apple cranberry strudel. Now if this flavor combination sounds exciting to you, or you're just a big fan of strudels in general, and I'm not talking about toaster strudels by the way, at least not right now anyways, then please hit that like button, and if you are new here and you're not already subscribed to my channel, please smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I make a new baking tutorial or short. I make new baking content every week, and my baking content is suitable for beginners and experienced bakers alike. So if that sounds like you, and you don't mind a little bit of self-deprecating humor sprinkled in here and there from time to time, then why don't you stick around for a little bit and make yourselves comfortable. And who knows, you might actually be surprised on what you might actually learn from me too. So today's apple strudel recipe is pretty straightforward. It's basically filled with some brandied apples and cranberries with some toasted almonds for a little bit of crunch, and then it's brushed with some brown butter and dusted with some icing sugar and drizzled with some creme anglaise. It's really simple, really. So why is it that a lot of apple strudel recipes out there insist on using puff pastries or even filo dough instead of traditional strudel dough for their recipes? Well, I guess it may have to do with the fact that traditional strudel dough may come across as intimidating for many beginner bakers out there. So I guess that is why many recipes out there tend to go with the easiest route for success, which I think is absolutely absurd, to be honest. And also a bit insulting too, if I do say so myself. And I'm not really much of a beginner, I'm just someone who's just terrible. And to be honest, I don't think I'm actually a terrible baker or anything like that. Like, I consider myself more intermediate and such, but it's just the amount of criticism that I keep getting constantly, like over the years, and especially more recently, is basically making me doubt my skills, and that's why I kind of talk myself down this way. Well, today I'm here to help you overcome your fears about strudel dough, as well as to show you just how easy it is to make it. Made with 5 simple ingredients and a lot easier to handle than even pie dough, the trick here is to gently stretch out your strudel dough so that it doesn't tear. And once you get the hang of it, you'll never want to go back to using puff pastry for your apple strudel again. This recipe is literally foolproof, and I believe that even a beginner can master the method the first time around. Hopefully, I've eased some of your fears about making strudel dough entirely from scratch. So why don't we go work on it, and let's go get started on it now, shall we?
Yeah, so this is the part where I tell you that you have to do some prep work before you begin. So we are going to have to do some prep first. So first, we are going to toast half a cup of sliced almonds to be used for the streusel in a large baking tray, and toast them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius for 7 to 10 minutes, or until it has a golden brown color. Set that aside to cool, and then we are going to toast the breadcrumbs. So, in a medium-sized saucepan, add in 125 grams of panko breadcrumbs and 45 grams of melted brown butter, and toast it on medium heat for about 5 to 7 minutes, or until the breadcrumbs have a golden brown color to them, like so. Set them aside, and finally, the last thing to prep before we begin is our creme anglaise. Now, if you prefer to serve your strudel with vanilla ice cream or even whipped cream, you can totally skip this step. But I prefer to serve mine with some custard, so that's what we're doing today. In a medium-sized bowl, add in 6 large egg yolks that's at room temperature, and make sure to carefully separate your eggs so that they don't break. This step can get a little messy here, so if you have a gadget that can separate your eggs more efficiently, then it's better to use that. 3/4 cups or 150 grams of granulated sugar, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 tablespoon of vanilla bean paste, or use the seeds and pod of 1 vanilla bean, and a pinch of salt, and, using a whisk, mix together until fully combined and the egg yolks are nice and creamy. Melt down half a cup or 113 grams of unsalted butter over medium heat and make sure to brown it. Since I practically brown my butter in every recipe, I don't want to have to keep repeating myself here, but basically you are cooking and stirring the melted butter until the milk solids are a golden brown color. Once the butter has browned, quickly add in 1 cup each or 240 milliliters of whole milk or almond milk, as well as your heavy cream to the pot and mix it into the melted butter. Warm it up over medium heat for about 3 minutes or until the milk mixture starts to simmer and steam. Okay, so perhaps I've underestimated on how much the milk would boil over this tiny saucepan, so let's just quickly temper some of it into the egg mixture. Make sure to pour it in the bowl slowly and stir it as you are pouring this so that the eggs don't scramble. Yeah, there's no way I'm cooking the tempered eggs inside this tiny saucepan, so into a large pot we go with this. Continue to cook the custard over medium heat for 3 to 5 minutes, making sure to stir it as it cooks until the custard starts to bubble and thicken. Once the custard has thickened, pour into a heat-safe container and, wait a second, aren't we forgetting something here? Yeah, nope! We have to strain the custard first so that there's no egg pieces in our custard. Yeah, that's it. Strain it over a large bowl, or I guess the same pot as before, using a fine mesh strainer, and keep straining it until the custard is nice and smooth and free of those pesky egg pieces. And now you can pour your smooth custard into your heat-safe container and place some plastic wrap on top to prevent a skin from forming, and set it aside in the fridge for now until it's time to serve it with the strudel. Speaking of, it's finally time to make that strudel dough. So, in a large bowl, add in 300 grams or approximately 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour and make sure to sift it so that it's nice and light and free of any lumps. 3/4 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, 1/3 cup or 80 milliliters of vegetable oil, and half a cup or 120 milliliters of warm water, and mix it together until a shaggy dough is formed. Feel free to add in a little more water if the dough feels a little dry, or a little more flour if the dough feels too sticky. You'll want your dough to be soft and smooth, so we are kneading this by hand for 7 to 10 minutes or until the dough is nice and smooth. You can also use a stand mixer if you like, but for best results, try to knead it by hand so that there's less chance of the dough being over-kneaded. Add a bit of oil to your hands and rub it all over the surface of your dough. Place the dough into a bowl and cover and allow the dough to rest for at least an hour so that the dough can fully relax and there's less chance of it tearing once we go and stretch it out later on. While we wait for a strudel dough, let's go make the filling. Wash and peel 2 pounds or 908 grams worth of assorted apples. Try to use a mix of sweet and tart bacon apples for the best flavor. Here, I'm using Granny Smith and Honey Crisp. Then, we are going to cut the apples in half and then in quarters and just cut the ends of the apples off. And do you see the center of the apple here? We are going to core it. So you just simply bring the knife down towards the center, but not too deep, just around a 1/4 inch down, and cut it on both ends until the core is removed. It should look like this when you are done. Then cut the apples into thin slices and place them in a large bowl. We're going to add in 1 tablespoon or 15 milliliters of apple cider vinegar to help prevent browning and to add some flavor to the apples, as well as 10 ounces or 283 grams of fresh cranberries, and just toss them together. To make this even more tasty, we're adding in the zest of 2 oranges and the juice of half an orange, which is about 2 to 3 tablespoons, 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 3/4 teaspoons of almond extract, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 3/4 teaspoons of nutmeg, 3/4 teaspoons of ground ginger, half a teaspoon of ground cloves, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom, half a teaspoon of kosher salt, and 3/4 cups, or about 188 grams, of packed light or dark brown sugar, and carefully mix everything together using a spatula until fully combined. You can also use your hands for this step if you find it easier to mix it that way. And now it's time for a little secret weapon, the brandy. Add in 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of it to the seasoned apples and toss it all together. It smells amazing. The brandy really brings out the best notes in the apples and the spices. Like seriously, it smells so comforting and the scent is quite addictive. You can also make the filling up to 3 days in advance to save yourself some time here when you are making the strudel, and plus, the flavor and the scent is improved the longer it sits. Okay, so our strudel dough should be well rested now, so let's go shape it out. Before you begin, make sure to place a large kitchen towel or a clean tablecloth so that when it comes time to roll up the strudel, it's much easier to handle. Give the tablecloth or towel a generous dusting of flour so that the dough doesn't stick as you are rolling it up. And here's a trick that I've learned from a couple of videos that I've watched on strudel dough. Give the dough a few hard smacks on the countertop before you roll it out. This helps with the elasticity of the dough and helps it to stretch out even further. Then, using a rolling pin, roll it out as flat as you can until you get to about 1/4 inch thickness. And then, here's where things start to get a bit tricky. But as long as you are careful in this part and don't rush it, you should do just fine. So, using the back of your hands, gently stretch out the dough. As you are stretching this out, the dough should start to get thinner, larger, and more elastic. You can also use your fingertips if you are very careful and just stretch it from the edges if you find it easier that way. And if a few holes should appear as you are stretching this out, that's okay. As long as it's not coming from the center of the dough, you should still be good to go. The trick to stretching out your dough is to go as slowly and as gently as possible to help minimize the chance of tearing. Continue to stretch your dough out until it's thin enough to read a piece of paper underneath, like so. Trim the thick edges of the strudel dough and set it aside for a separate use, or just simply discard it if you prefer. Brush on 3/4 cups or 170 grams worth of unsalted brown butter over the surface of the strudel dough. Keep in mind that you'll have to save some of this butter to brush on top later on, so try not to use the whole thing. As good as brown butter can be, please try not to go too crazy here. Then add your toasted breadcrumbs from earlier over the entire surface of the dough, and then your brandied apples. I made mine 2 days in advance, and like I said before, the smell is just amazing. So let's just add them on top here. Oop! Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's try that again. There we go, all on one side of the strudel. Though, make sure to leave about 2 inches of space after filling it so that you can easily roll up your strudel. As for this leftover liquid here, this would be perfect to use in your favorite pork or chicken dishes or even in a drink, so definitely don't throw this away. Add your toasted almonds on top and then fold the sides and the ends of the strudel over the filling. And then I stupidly tried to roll the strudel up on my own, so this is where the tablecloth comes into handy here. Take the tablecloth and carefully roll up your strudel using one end of the tablecloth. Roll it up nice and slowly. And here's what it looks like once it's nice and rolled up. Doesn't it look like a giant burrito? Like, this is my very first time making and rolling up strudel dough, so I'm just very pleased on how well this turned out. And now I realize that you probably didn't get to see me rolling up the strudel dough clearly, so here's me doing it again, but using some of that leftover scrap dough that I had trimmed away. Here, I'm making a chocolate peanut butter strudel with toasted nuts. Basically, you're taking one end of the strudel dough and rolling it up using the tablecloth and slowly rolling it up into a log, like so. That was just a test recipe that I came up with on the fly, so if you want me to actually make a full recipe on that strudel as well, please let me know in the comments, and if there's enough interest, I'll get right on it. Anyways, back to our apple strudel. You're going to carefully place the strudel onto an extra large baking tray that's lined with some parchment paper. Wait, hold on. Yes! I did it! And my first try too! I managed to get it all in one piece. Brush on the rest of your brown butter over the entire surface of the strudel dough. Make sure that it's well coated so that the strudel doesn't dry out too much as it bakes. And look at those brown butter specks over the surface of our dough. That is some extra special goodness sprinkled throughout. This is going to be so good. Bake your strudel in a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven or 205 degrees Celsius for 45 minutes or until the strudel has a beautiful golden brown color throughout. And make sure to rotate your pan halfway through so that it can brown evenly. Once your strudel has been fully baked, drool at its beauty. Like seriously, doesn't this look good enough to eat? But it still needs a little something to finish it off, so we are going to dust on some icing sugar on top. Not too much. Try not to go too crazy like how I went here, unless you're into that kind of stuff, of course. And your apple strudel is finally complete. These are best eaten right away when it's nice and crisp, as well as warm, though it's still good when it's a little soft as well. And just look at the insides. Puff pastry ain't got nothing on this gorgeous texture. I'm really pleased with how everything turned out. Serve this with the biggest drizzle of creme anglaise on top and enjoy your apple cranberry strudel, you guys.
And there you have it, apple cranberry strudel. See? I told you that homemade strudel was so worth the extra effort. I mean, look at this labor of love. Isn't this gorgeous? Like, I bet you puff pastry or even filo would not even give you the same result. No, it is. And this is coming from somebody who's usually terrible with baking. So if I can get the hang of stretching out strudel dough just fine, then I also have faith in you that you can also be successful in making strudel dough as well. I promise you that it's much easier than how it looks. Trust me on this. I made this strudel once for Thanksgiving, and though it's a little late to make for Canadian Thanksgiving, though you can just keep this recipe in mind for next year, you can still make this apple strudel for American Thanksgiving, or you can just use it for any holiday gatherings that are coming up, especially with the brandy and the cranberries that are in this strudel. Also, the flavor of homemade strudel just simply can't be beat. It pairs really nicely with the apples, and puff pastry is just isn't the same. I mean, you want tender, not super flaky. So the next time you are making apple strudel, please just consider making your own homemade strudel dough. Okay? You'll thank me later once you do taste the difference yourself. So that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed today's recipe and you liked what you see here, or if I somehow managed to convince you into making your own apple strudel dough for yourself, then please give this video a like and leave a comment down below and tell me what you think of them, especially if you're going to give this recipe a try. Share this video so that others can also try their hand at making their own apple cranberry strudels for themselves. And if you're not already following me, but you enjoy the baking content that I do on here, then please smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I make a new baking tutorial or short. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok Both usernames are Tiff's Patisserie, and the full written recipe to today's apple cranberry strudels will be on my website, tiffspatisserie.wordpress.com. The link to that is in the description box down below. And until next time, you guys, stay safe out there, peace out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!